Marcus Steele stood near the grand oak doors of the ballroom, his heart pounding beneath the tailored black tuxedo that had become his armor. The rehearsal dinner was in full swing, the hum of soft jazz mingling with the clinking of crystal glasses and polite laughter. Everything about the evening was meticulously orchestrated, just like the life Marcus had built for himself. Polished, controlled, and impeccably flawless. His fiancée, Celeste, was the epitome of elegance, radiant in a shimmering silver gown that caught every light in the room. Their impending wedding was the social event of the season, one that would cement Marcus's standing among the city's elite. Yet, beneath the surface of celebration, Marcus carried a restless energy. The weight of expectation pressed on him, from his family, his business partners, and himself. The Steele name was synonymous with success, and any deviation from the carefully charted path felt like a threat to everything he had worked for. As the guests mingled, Marcus's attention was drawn to the kitchen entrance, where the staff moved with practiced efficiency. Among them was the chef hired specifically for the event, a man whose presence Marcus hadn't anticipated. Darius. The name alone sent a jolt through Marcus's memory, stirring emotions he had long buried. He hadn't seen Darius in years, not since the abrupt and painful end to their relationship, a chapter Marcus had convinced himself was closed forever. But now, here he was, standing just beyond reach, commanding the kitchen with quiet authority, his dark skin glowing under the soft kitchen lights, his eyes sharp and focused. Marcus's breath caught as he remembered the countless nights they had spent dreaming together, sharing secrets and hopes that now seemed like echoes from another life. Then, as if fate weren't content with mere coincidence, Marcus noticed a small figure trailing behind Darius, a little girl with wide, curious eyes and an unmistakable resemblance to himself. Her curls bounced as she navigated the bustling kitchen, her laughter a bright counterpoint to the clatter of pots and pans. The girl's presence struck Marcus like a thunderbolt. The resemblance was uncanny. The same sharp cheekbones, the deep brown eyes, the confident tilt of her chin. In that instant, Marcus felt the world shift beneath his feet. Questions flooded his mind, each more urgent than the last. Who was she? How had he never known? And why was Darius here, now, with a child who looked so much like him? Celeste approached, her voice gentle but tinged with excitement, pulling Marcus back from the edge of his spiraling thoughts. "Marcus, the guests are waiting for you. Everything looks perfect." He nodded absently, his gaze drawn again to Darius, who had noticed him now, their eyes locking across the room with a mixture of surprise and something unspoken, regret, perhaps, or a silent acknowledgement of shared history. The rehearsal dinner proceeded with the usual formalities, but Marcus was adrift, his mind consumed by the revelation. He found himself stealing glances toward Darius and the little girl. Each look deepening the knot of emotions inside him. The man who once held his heart now represented a secret life Marcus had never been aware of, a daughter he never knew existed. As the evening wore on, Marcus excused himself from the table, the laughter and chatter fading into a distant murmur. Outside, the cool night air bit at his skin, but it was nothing compared to the chill running through his veins. He paced along the marble steps of the estate, trying to reconcile the man he had been with the truth now standing before him. Memories flooded back, the late-night talks, the stolen moments in shadowed corners, the promises whispered in the dark. He had left, convinced that ambition demanded sacrifice, that love was a luxury he could not afford. But now, faced with the undeniable evidence of a child who carried his blood, Marcus's carefully constructed facade threatened to crumble. A soft voice interrupted his reverie. "Marcus!" He turned to see Darius standing a few feet away, the girl clutching his hand, her eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Darius's expression was unreadable, a blend of wariness and something closer to vulnerability. "We didn't expect you tonight," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. Darius's gaze flicked to the girl before meeting Marcus's eyes again. "There are things you don't know." The words hung heavy in the air, unspoken stories, and long-held secrets waiting to be unveiled. Marcus swallowed hard, realizing that the life he thought he had mastered was about to unravel in ways he could never have anticipated. The evening celebration continued inside, oblivious to the storm gathering on the estate's quiet terrace. Marcus knew that tomorrow, everything would change. His future, his loyalties, and his understanding of himself were all about to be challenged by the presence of a daughter he never knew he had and the man who had once meant everything to him. For the first time in years, Marcus felt the walls around his heart begin to crack. The rehearsal dinner, meant to be a prelude to a perfect wedding, had become a stage for a reckoning that would force him to confront the past he had long tried to bury and face the uncertain path ahead. Marcus lay awake long after the city's lights had dimmed behind his penthouse windows. The night felt heavier than usual, thick with the weight of a revelation that refused to loosen its grip on his mind. The image of the little girl, so vibrant and alive, haunted him. The undeniable reflection of himself in her eyes, the same defiant curl to her lips, the same depth in her gaze. She was his daughter, a fact that shattered the carefully built walls of his life and forced him to confront truths he had never dared to face. Celeste's voice echoed faintly from the bedroom, a soft murmur of sleep. She was unaware of the tempest raging inside Marcus, blissfully nestled in a world he was about to disrupt. His upcoming marriage to her had been a cornerstone of his future, a promise of stability and status. But now, with the secret of his daughter lurking just beyond the surface, everything felt fragile, like glass threatening to shatter under the slightest pressure. The following morning, Marcus moved through the day like a man caught between two worlds. At the office, his usual sharp focus was dulled by a storm of conflicting emotions. His colleagues noticed the subtle shift, the distracted gaze, the absence of his usual commanding presence. The carefully rehearsed smile he wore during meetings felt like a mask, hiding a turmoil he could no longer contain. In the quiet moments between appointments, Marcus wrestled with his conscience. How could he proceed with the wedding, knowing there was a child out there who carried his blood, who deserved more than whispers and shadows? The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, heavier than any business deal or social obligation. His mind drifted back to Darius, the man who had once held his heart with such fierce tenderness and then slipped away, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and broken promises. Marcus remembered the pain of that separation, the bitterness of a love sacrificed at the altar of ambition. Now, faced with the reality of a daughter he never knew existed, those old wounds reopened, raw and bleeding. That evening, the rehearsal dinner's afterglow still lingered in his mind as Marcus sat alone in his study, the city lights flickering like distant stars beyond the glass. He pulled out his phone, fingers trembling as he typed a message to Darius. A simple request to meet, to talk, to begin unraveling the tangled threads of their shared past. The reply was swift but cautious. Tomorrow, cafe on 5th noon. The day dawned gray and overcast, mirroring Marcus's unsettled mood. As he entered the modest cafe where they had agreed to meet, his heart pounded with anticipation and dread. Darius was already there, seated by the window, the little girl beside him, her attention absorbed by a coloring book, but her eyes flicking up occasionally to observe Marcus. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with unspoken words. Marcus took a deep breath and sat down, the weight of years and secrets pressing between them. I didn't know, Marcus began, voice low. I never knew I had a daughter. Darius's gaze was steady, but guarded. You didn't want to know. The accusation stung, but Marcus knew it held truth. He had walked away, convinced that love would only hold him back. I made mistakes, he admitted, but I want to be here now, for her. The little girl looked up, her eyes meeting Marcus's with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Marcus felt a pang of longing, the ache of lost time settling deep in his chest. Darius swallowed hard. It's not that simple. She's been through a lot. I protected her. I can't just hand her over to someone who disappeared. Marcus nodded, understanding the depth of Darius's protectiveness. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for chance. The conversation stretched on, tentative and fragile, as they navigated the complexities of trust and responsibility. Marcus shared his fears and hopes, the regrets of a man who had chased success at the cost of love. Darius listened, his expression softening but still guarded. Later, as they parted ways, Marcus felt the weight of the day settle over him. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and difficult choices. His relationship with Celeste, once a beacon of certainty, now seemed tenuous, shadowed by the secret he could no longer ignore. That night, Marcus stared at the ceiling, grappling with a storm of emotions. Guilt twisted alongside hope. Fear battled with resolve. The man who had once been controlled and composed now found himself vulnerable, exposed to the raw reality of a past he could no longer escape. He knew the days to come would test him in ways he had never imagined. Balancing the life he had built with the new reality of fatherhood would demand sacrifices and courage. But beneath the turmoil, a quiet determination began to take root, a desire to make amends, to embrace the family he never knew he had, and to face the future with honesty and heart. Marcus closed his eyes, the image of the little girl's smile etched into his mind. Tomorrow was a step into the unknown, but it was a step he was ready to take. For her, for Darius, for the man he was becoming. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Augustine's Church, casting multicolored patterns across the polished marble floor. Marcus stood at the entrance of the chapel, his heart a tempest of emotions that no amount of rehearsed calm could quell. Today was supposed to be the day he sealed his future with Celeste, a union celebrated by their families, friends, and the city's elite. Instead, it felt like the moment everything he had built was unraveling, thread by fragile thread. The pews were filled with well-dressed guests, their faces a mix of expectation and joy. Soft murmurs rippled through the crowd, the buzz of a successful alliance about to be formalized. Celeste waited at the altar, radiant in her white gown, her eyes shimmering with hope and love. Yet, as Marcus's gaze fell upon her, he was struck by the painful dichotomy of the life before him and the truths he could no longer ignore. His thoughts were consumed by the night before, by the image of Darius's daughter, the undeniable proof of a secret that had been kept from him and from everyone else. The child who bore his eyes, his smile, was a living testament to a past he had tried to bury, a past that now demanded recognition and responsibility. As the organist began to play the opening notes, a hush fell over the congregation. Marcus felt the weight of every pair of eyes upon him, the collective anticipation pressing like a physical force. The moment had arrived, the point of no return. With measured steps, he walked down the aisle, each footfall echoing in the cavernous space. The congregation's smiles and whispered congratulations blurred into a background hum as Marcus's mind raced. Could he go through with this wedding, knowing that a daughter awaited his acknowledgement? Could he stand beside Celeste, the woman he had promised to love, while his heart ached for a family he had never met? As he reached the altar, Celeste's smile faltered, sensing the turmoil behind his composed facade. The priest's voice filled the space, reciting the familiar vows, but Marcus's attention was elsewhere. His eyes drifted to the church doors, as if willing them to open and reveal the truth waiting beyond. Then, in a moment that stunned everyone, Marcus stopped. The words caught in his throat, the weight of deception and unspoken truths too heavy to bear. He stepped back from the altar, the polished floor beneath him feeling suddenly unstable. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Celeste's expression shifted from confusion to hurt, her eyes searching his for answers. Marcus's voice, when it came, was low but resolute. I cannot do this. Not today. Not without truth. The silence that followed was deafening. The guests exchanged bewildered glances, whispers spreading like wildfire. Celeste's hands trembled, a mixture of shock and betrayal washing over her. The priest paused, uncertain how to proceed. Marcus took a deep breath, steadying himself against the tide of emotions. There is something I must face, something I've hidden for too long. His eyes found Darius's in the back of the church, the man standing with a guarded expression, the little girl clutching his hand. I have a daughter I never knew. And before I commit to a future with anyone else, I must confront this truth. The room erupted into a chorus of gasps and murmurs. Some faces showed disbelief, others sympathy. Marcus felt every gaze like a spotlight, illuminating the vulnerability he had tried so hard to suppress. Celeste stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. Why now, Marcus? Why on our wedding day? He met her gaze, the pain of his decision mirrored in her eyes. Because I cannot build a future on lies. I owe it to her, to Darius, and to you, to be honest. This changes everything. Turning away from the altar, Marcus moved swiftly through the pews, his footsteps steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. Outside, the world felt colder, harsher, but also somehow realer than the polished illusion he had maintained. He found Darius waiting just beyond the church doors, the little girl peering curiously from behind her father's leg. Marcus knelt to meet her eyes, the connection immediate and profound. Hi, he said softly. I'm Marcus. She smiled tentatively, a small hand reaching out to touch his. In that simple gesture, Marcus felt a bridge forming, fragile but vital. Darius watched quietly, his expression unreadable. It's not going to be easy, he said, for any of us. Marcus nodded, the weight of the moment settling deep within him. I know, but I want to try. I want to be here, for her, for you. As they stood together, the church bells ringing faintly in the distance, Marcus understood that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. He had shattered the expectations of a lifetime, risking reputation and relationships. But in doing so, he had embraced a truth that could no longer be denied. The wedding that was meant to be a celebration had become a turning point, a moment of reckoning that forced Marcus to choose authenticity over appearances, love over convenience, and responsibility over denial. As the guests began to disperse, whispers trailing in their wake, Marcus felt a strange calm settle over him. The future was uncertain, the road ahead winding and uncharted. But for the first time in years, he walked it with open eyes and an open heart, ready to face whatever came next. The days following the halted wedding were a whirlwind of whispered rumors and sideways glances. Marcus felt the weight of every stare, every hushed conversation among the city's social elite who once cheered his union with Celeste, but now questioned his judgment and stability. His family's disappointment was palpable. Texts from his father were curt, his mother's voice strained with disbelief. The carefully woven tapestry of his life had unraveled overnight, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. Determined to face the consequences head-on, Marcus reached out to Darius again, hoping to bridge the chasm between them. But the man who had once been his lover now stood behind walls thicker than Marcus had anticipated. When Marcus arrived at Darius's modest apartment, the tension in the room was immediate and suffocating. The little girl clung to her father's side, eyes wide but wary. I want to be part of her life, Marcus said quietly, trying to steady the tremor in his voice. I want to make things right. Darius's gaze was guarded, his jaw tight. You can't just show up and expect everything to be okay. You disappeared once before. How do I know you won't do it again? The accusation hit Marcus harder than any rebuke. He swallowed, searching for words that might mend years of hurt. I know I have no right to ask for trust, but I want to prove I'm serious. For her. The little girl peeked from behind Darius, her small hand reaching toward Marcus, then pulling back. The moment hung heavy with unspoken emotions, hope, fear, and the fragile beginnings of something new. Outside, the world seemed indifferent to the private storm brewing within those walls. Marcus's phone buzzed incessantly. Calls from Celeste, from his business partners, from friends who had become strangers overnight. Each ring was a reminder of the life he was fracturing, the reputation he was risking for a chance at redemption. Celeste's voice was firm when they finally spoke. Marcus, this is reckless. You're throwing away everything for a secret you didn't even know about until last week. I'm not throwing anything away, he replied, voice low but resolute. I'm trying to be honest for once. For everyone involved. Their conversation ended with a chilling silence, the distance between them growing wider than ever. At work, Marcus faced skepticism from his board and colleagues. Whispers of instability circulated, and proposals were met with cautious scrutiny. The man who had once commanded respect now stood on shaky ground, his personal life casting a shadow over his professional achievements. Yet, amidst the turmoil, Marcus found moments of clarity. He began spending afternoons with Darius and his daughter, tentative and awkward at first, learning the rhythms of a life that had been denied to him. He watched as the little girl's laughter filled the room, felt the tentative trust growing between them. But Darius remained cautious, his protective instincts unyielding. This won't be easy, for her or for any of us, he warned during one of their meetings. She's been through enough without having her life turned upside down again. Marcus nodded, the truth of those words settling deep within him. He wasn't just fighting for acceptance. He was fighting to prove he could be a father, a partner, someone reliable and present. The social pressures mounted. Invitations to gala dinners and exclusive events dwindled. His family's disapproval was a constant undercurrent, their disappointment a silent echo in every conversation. Marcus felt the sting of isolation but refused to retreat. One evening, after a particularly strained meeting with his board, Marcus sat alone in his office, the city skyline glowing beyond the windows. His phone buzzed, a message from Darius. Can we talk? It's important. The meeting that followed was honest and raw. They discussed boundaries, fears, and the fragile steps needed to rebuild trust. Marcus pledged his commitment, not just in words, but in actions, promising to be there for his daughter, to respect Darius's role in her life, and to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks, the tentative beginnings of a family took shape. Marcus learned to navigate the complexities of co-parenting, balancing his demanding career with the unpredictable needs of a child he was only just beginning to know. There were setbacks and misunderstandings, moments of frustration and doubt, but also small victories, shared laughter, quiet conversations, the gradual weaving together of lives once separate. Through it all, Marcus realized that the path to redemption was neither simple nor swift. It demanded patience, humility, and unwavering dedication. But with each step, he felt the walls around his heart soften, replaced by a growing hope that he could build something genuine and lasting. Though the world around him continued to judge and whisper, Marcus focused on the family he was determined to nurture, the daughter who had changed everything, and the man who had never stopped believing in the possibility of a second chance. Marcus sat quietly on the worn bench in the city park, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. The laughter of children playing echoed nearby, a bittersweet reminder of the family life he was only beginning to glimpse. Across from him, the little girl, his daughter, drew colorful shapes in a sketchbook, her small fingers gripping crayons with careful concentration. Beside her, Darius watched with a protective gaze, his posture relaxed but alert, always ready to shield what was his. The past weeks had been a delicate dance of emotions and boundaries, tentative steps toward building something that had once seemed impossible. Marcus had learned to navigate the fragile terrain of fatherhood, understanding that love was not merely declared. It was earned, nurtured, and sustained through presence and patience. Their weekends together were filled with simple pleasures, trips to the zoo, visits to the local library, and quiet afternoons baking with flour, dusting the kitchen counters. Marcus treasured these moments, watching his daughter's eyes light up with curiosity as she explored the world, her laughter filling spaces that once felt hollow. Yet, beneath the surface of these joyful interludes, challenges loomed. The eyes of society were not kind to a man who had abandoned a past and then returned to claim responsibility. Whispers circulated in elite circles, questioning Marcus's stability and motives. Invitations to high-profile events dwindled, replaced by icy silences and veiled criticisms. Even within his own family, acceptance was tentative at best. His father's disapproving glare at a recent dinner, his mother's cautious words of advice, all served as reminders that Marcus was walking a path far from the one laid out for him. Darius was a fortress of strength and skepticism. His protective nature was both a balm and a barrier, keeping Marcus at arm's length while slowly allowing glimpses of trust. Their conversations were often guarded, laced with the history of hurt and the uncertainty of what the future might hold. "Dad," the little girl's voice broke through Marcus's thoughts, her eyes wide and earnest. "Can you help me with this puzzle?" Marcus smiled, setting aside the distance that had sometimes formed between them. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's figure it out together." As they worked on the puzzle, Marcus felt a deepening connection, a bond forged in shared moments and mutual discovery. He knew that rebuilding trust would take time, that the scars of the past could not be erased overnight. But with each smile, each hesitant hug, the walls around his heart softened a little more. At work, Marcus faced a different kind of battle. His renewed focus on family life was met with skepticism by his board of directors and business associates. His decisions were questioned, his leadership doubted. The man who once commanded the room now had to fight for respect in the shadow of his personal upheaval. One afternoon, after a tense meeting, Marcus found himself alone in the corner office, the city skyline sprawling before him like a reminder of all he had built and risked. His phone buzzed, a message from Darius: "Dinner tonight. We need to talk." The dinner was quiet at first, the clink of cutlery punctuating the silence. Then Darius spoke, his voice steady but serious. "You're trying, Marcus. I see that. But it's not just about showing up. It's about understanding what she needs and what I need from you." Marcus nodded, absorbing the weight of the words. "I want to be better. For both of you." Their conversation unfolded, honest and raw, peeling back layers of fear and hope. They discussed boundaries, expectations, and the fragile trust that was slowly being woven between them. Marcus promised to be patient, to listen, and to stand firm in his commitment. Outside the restaurant, the city lights twinkled like distant stars, a symbol of the uncertain future ahead. Yet, in that moment, Marcus felt a quiet resolve. He was no longer the man who had walked away from love and responsibility. He was a father, a partner, and a man determined to face whatever challenges the world might throw their way. As the weeks passed, the fragile threads of their new family began to strengthen. They attended school events together, shared birthdays and milestones, and weathered storms both small and large. Marcus found joy in the ordinary, a scraped knee kissed better, a bedtime story read with exaggerated voices, a quiet moment watching the sunset. Through it all, the challenges remained. The whispers of society, the doubts of family, the scars of past betrayals. But Marcus faced them with a newfound courage, anchored by the love he had rediscovered and the family he was building. In the warmth of their shared moments, Marcus realized that true strength lay not in wealth or status, but in the willingness to embrace vulnerability, to seek forgiveness, and to love without reservation. With Darius and his daughter by his side, he was ready to navigate the complexities of their intertwined lives, forging a future built on trust, respect, and the promise of new beginnings. Marcus stood in the grand hall of his family estate, flanked by his father and a few longtime business associates. The air was thick with expectation, the kind that had followed him all his life. Unspoken demands for conformity, for preserving the Steele legacy at any cost. His father's steely gaze bore into him, silently questioning his choices, his defiance. For years, Marcus had lived under the weight of those expectations, bending to their will without question. But tonight was different. Tonight, he was no longer the man who sacrificed everything for status and appearances. He was a father, a partner, and a man determined to live authentically. His father's voice cut through the silence, sharp and cold. "Marcus, this situation with Darius and the child, it's a distraction. It's bad for the family's reputation. You need to reconsider." Marcus met his father's gaze steadily. I've reconsidered everything, Dad. I'm choosing to prioritize what's real, my daughter, Darius, and the life we're building, not the image others expect of me. The room fell into a heavy hush. Some faces looked shocked. Others, like his father's closest advisors, wore thinly veiled disdain. But Marcus felt a surge of clarity and strength, the culmination of months spent wrestling with his past and present. I'm done hiding, he continued. Done pretending that success means anything without integrity and love. If that means I lose favor with some, so be it. His father's jaw tightened, but there was an unspoken recognition in his eyes, a grudging acknowledgement that Marcus was no longer a boy to be controlled. Later, away from the cold scrutiny of the estate, Marcus found solace in the warmth of his home, where Darius and his daughter awaited. The little girl ran into his arms, her laughter a balm to his weary soul. Darius watched from the doorway, his eyes reflecting cautious hope. That evening, Marcus sat down with Darius, the conversation honest and unguarded. I stood up to my family today, he said quietly. It wasn't easy, but I needed to make it clear where I stand. Darius nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I'm proud of you. It takes courage to choose love over legacy. Marcus reached out, taking Darius's hand in his. We're building something real, something that matters. And I'm ready to face whatever comes next with you and her. Their partnership, once tentative, had blossomed into a bond forged through vulnerability and shared commitment. Marcus felt the walls around his heart dissolve, replaced by a deep sense of belonging and purpose. In the days that followed, Marcus embraced his new role with renewed vigor. He balanced the demands of his business with the needs of his family, navigating challenges with a resilience born of love. The whispers of society persisted, but they no longer held power over him. At a local school event, Marcus watched as his daughter performed on stage, her radiant smile lighting up the room. Beside him, Darius squeezed his hand, a silent affirmation of their united front. Marcus knew the journey ahead would still hold obstacles, but he faced them with a strength that came from embracing his truth. He had chosen vulnerability over pretense, love over legacy, and in doing so, had found a freedom that no wealth or status could provide. As the sun set over the city skyline, Marcus stood with his family, feeling whole for the first time in years. The future was uncertain, but with Darius and his daughter by his side, he was ready to face it together. Marcus stood quietly in the kitchen of Darius's apartment, the warm aroma of spices and simmering sauces filling the air, a stark contrast to the sterile boardrooms and polished halls he was used to. It was here, amidst the clatter of pots and the hum of the stove, that he felt something he had long denied himself, a sense of belonging. The past months had been a journey fraught with uncertainty, but also growth. Slowly, Marcus and Darius had begun to rebuild the bridge between them, brick by brick, conversation by conversation. The walls that once kept them apart were giving way to understanding, forgiveness, and a cautious hope for what might come next. Pass me the time, Darius said, his tone light but focused. Marcus handed over the herb, their fingers brushing briefly, a small, electric moment that spoke volumes. It was these everyday interactions that grounded their evolving relationship, reminding Marcus that love wasn't just grand gestures, but the quiet moments shared in the mundane. After dinner, they settled into the living room, the little girl curled up between them, clutching a well-worn stuffed bear. Her laughter filled the space as they played a board game, a family in the making. Darius's voice softened as he glanced at Marcus. I never thought we'd get here, not like this, but I'm glad we did. Marcus nodded, the weight of those words settling deep within him. Me too. It hasn't been easy, but I want to keep building this with you and her. Their conversations had grown more open, addressing past grievances with honesty and a willingness to heal. Marcus apologized for the years lost, for the pain his absence had caused. Darius shared his fears of betrayal, of losing the family he had fought so hard to protect. Together, they envisioned a future that balanced their personal lives with their ambitions. Marcus spoke of scaling back his relentless work schedule, prioritizing moments with his daughter and Darius. Darius, in turn, expressed his desire to pursue new culinary ventures, dreaming of a restaurant that celebrated their shared heritage and passion. The little girl's eyes sparkled as Marcus spoke of teaching her to cook, to embrace the flavors and stories of their family. It was a vision filled with hope, a tapestry woven from the threads of love, trust, and shared dreams. Yet, the road ahead remained complex. Navigating the intersection of their pasts and futures required patience and compromise. Marcus felt the lingering shadows of societal judgment and familial expectations, but with Darius beside him, those challenges seemed less daunting. One evening, as they sat beneath the soft glow of the kitchen lights, Marcus reached for Darius's hand. "I want us to be more than co-parents, more than friends. I want us to be partners, in every sense." Darius's smile was tentative but genuine. "I want that too. It's scary, but feels right." Their commitment was not without its fears, but it was rooted in a shared understanding that love demanded courage and vulnerability. Together, they faced the unknown, ready to build a life that honored their past while embracing the possibilities of tomorrow. As the night deepened, Marcus looked around the room, the warmth, the laughter, the promise of a family reclaimed. He knew that the journey was far from over, but with Darius and his daughter by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next, hand in hand, heart to heart. Marcus sat at the head of the sleek conference table, the hum of activity in the boardroom fading into the background as he reviewed the latest proposals. His usual laser focus was tempered by a quiet resolve that had settled over him in recent weeks, a resolve born from the profound shifts in his personal life. For years, Marcus had measured success by the growth of his empire, the expansion of his influence, and the accumulation of wealth. But now, those metrics felt hollow, without meaning beyond their surface. The revelation of his daughter and his rekindled relationship with Darius had reshaped his priorities, forcing him to reconsider not just his personal commitments, but his professional ambitions as well. After the meeting adjourned, Marcus lingered behind as his colleagues filed out, their questions and doubts about his recent choices echoing in his mind. The whispers about his softened leadership, his divided focus, were unmistakable, yet he felt no regret. Instead, he was ready for a change that reflected who he had become. Later that evening, in the quiet of his study, Marcus drafted a letter to his board of directors. It was a formal announcement of his decision to step back from the day-to-day operations of his company, delegating responsibilities to trusted partners. He expressed his intention to focus on a new venture, one inspired by Darius's passion for culinary arts and the family they were building together. The idea was simple yet profound: a community-based culinary institute and restaurant that celebrated diverse cultures, fostered young talent, and provided opportunities for those often overlooked. It was a departure from Marcus's traditional business model, but aligned perfectly with his newfound purpose. When he shared the plan with Darius, the chef's eyes lit up with excitement and disbelief. "You're serious," Darius said, a smile breaking across his face. "This is more than I ever imagined." Marcus nodded. "I want to build something meaningful, not just for us, but for the community, something that honors our story." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of planning, meetings with local organizations, and outreach to potential partners. Marcus found himself energized by the work, the sense that his professional life was finally aligned with his personal values. Balancing the demands of the new venture with his responsibilities as a father and partner was challenging. There were long nights, logistical hurdles, and moments of doubt. But with Darius's unwavering support and the joyful presence of his daughter, Marcus felt grounded. The community responded with enthusiasm and curiosity. Invitations to speak at local events, partnerships with culinary schools, and media interest began to grow. Marcus and Darius worked side by side, blending their expertise and dreams into a tangible reality. Amid the excitement, Marcus remained mindful of the challenges they still faced: skepticism from old acquaintances, lingering doubts from family, and the ever-present pressure of maintaining financial stability. Yet he embraced these obstacles as part of the journey, confident in the path they were forging. One afternoon, as Marcus tasted a new dish crafted by Darius, the little girl giggled from her seat at the kitchen counter, eagerly waiting for her turn to try the flavors. Marcus smiled, the warmth of the moment enveloping him. He realized that stepping back from his empire was not a retreat, but a step forward, a conscious choice to build a legacy rooted in love, authenticity, and community. As the sun set beyond the city skyline, Marcus felt a profound peace. The road ahead was uncharted, but with Darius and his daughter beside him, he was ready to embrace the unknown, committed to creating a future that was as rich and vibrant as the life they shared. The evening air was cool and crisp as Marcus, Darius, and their daughter walked hand in hand through the softly lit streets of the neighborhood where their culinary venture had taken root. The restaurant's grand opening had been a whirlwind of emotions. Nervous excitement, overwhelming support, and the undeniable feeling that they were creating something larger than themselves. Inside the warmly lit space, the aroma of spices and fresh ingredients mingled with the hum of conversation and laughter. Patrons savored dishes crafted with care, the flavors telling stories of heritage, resilience, and love. Marcus watched as Darius moved effortlessly between tables, sharing his passion with guests, his eyes shining with pride. As the night wore on, Marcus found himself standing beside Darius, the little girl nestled between them, her head resting on his chest. It was a moment of quiet intimacy amid the celebration, a testament to the journey they had undertaken together. "I never imagined this," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just a restaurant, but us, our family." Darius smiled, his hand tightening around Marcus's. "It's been a long road, but we made it." They spoke openly about their past, the mistakes, the regrets, and the love that had endured despite the odds. Marcus expressed gratitude for Darius's patience and strength, acknowledging the courage it had taken to open his heart again. Their daughter, sensing the significance of the moment, looked up with wide eyes and a shy smile. "I love our restaurant," she said softly, "and I love you both." Tears welled in Marcus's eyes as he pulled them both into a gentle embrace. The barriers that had once separated them had dissolved, leaving behind a family forged in truth and commitment. Later, as the evening wound down, they gathered with close friends and supporters for a small celebration in the restaurant's cozy back room. Glasses clinked, stories were shared, and laughter filled the air. It was more than a party. It was a declaration of love and resilience. Marcus took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The man who had once been defined by ambition and appearances had transformed. He had embraced vulnerability, confronted his past, and chosen love over legacy. He and Darius exchanged a look that spoke volumes, a promise to continue building their life together, to face challenges as partners, and to nurture the family they had created. As the night drew to a close, Marcus felt a profound sense of peace and joy. The journey was far from over, but in this moment, surrounded by those they loved, he knew they were exactly where they were meant to be. Together, they stepped into the future, ready to face whatever came next with open hearts and unwavering devotion. The park was alive with color and laughter, the golden afternoon sun casting a warm glow over a gathering of family and friends. Balloons bobbed lazily in the gentle breeze, and the scent of blooming flowers mingled with the distant hum of children's play. It was a celebration unlike any Marcus had known, a joyful reunion of past and present, a testament to the journey that had brought them here. Today was his daughter's birthday, and the small crowd had come together not just to mark another year of her life, but to honor the family they had forged against the odds. The picnic blankets were spread beneath towering oaks, and the air was filled with music, chatter, and the soft clinking of glasses raised in toasts. Marcus watched as his daughter, radiant in a simple dress, chased after bubbles with abandon, her laughter ringing clear and pure. Darius stood nearby, his smile broad and eyes shining with pride as he captured the moment with his camera. Marcus felt a swell of emotion, a mixture of gratitude and hope that settled deep within him. His own family was present, some hesitant, others more openly warm, but all there, bridging the gap that once seemed insurmountable. Friends who had stood by him through the upheaval mingled with new faces from their community culinary project, weaving a tapestry of support and love. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, Marcus found himself surrounded by those who mattered most. He took Darius's hand, squeezing it gently, and then knelt beside his daughter, pulling her into a warm embrace. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice thick with feeling. She looked up at him, eyes sparkling. "Thank you, Daddy." In that moment, Marcus saw not just the child before him, but the embodiment of second chances, of love reclaimed and futures rewritten. The path to this day had been fraught with challenges, secrets uncovered, relationships tested, and identities reshaped, but the reward was this: a family united, whole, and brimming with possibility. As twilight settled, the gathering moved into quiet conversations and shared memories. Marcus stood back for a moment, letting the scene wash over him. The smiles, the embraces, the genuine connections that transcended past mistakes. He realized that true happiness was not found in wealth or status, but in these moments of authenticity and belonging. The legacy he once sought to protect had been transformed into something far richer, a family built on honesty, forgiveness, and unconditional love. With Darius and their daughter by his side, Marcus felt ready for whatever the future held. The storms they had weathered together had forged a bond unbreakable, a foundation strong enough to face the unknown. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Marcus closed his eyes briefly, breathing in the warmth of the night and the promise it held. This was not just an ending, but a beginning, a celebration of the life they had chosen and the love that would carry them forward, hand in hand, heart to heart. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.